All right. Hello, everyone, and thank you all for joining us during the Lytham Partners Spring 2022 Investor Conference. My name is Robert Blum, Managing Partner of Lytham Partners. During this presentation, we welcome Jaguar Health, ticker symbol of JAGX, on the NASDAQ, and their Chief Executive Officer, Lisa Conte. Today, I've asked Lisa to briefly run through the slide presentation, and we will then engage in a short fireside chat-like Q&A session. But before we begin, one final note, I just want to remind everyone that Lisa is available for one-on-one meetings later this week. If you've not already signed up, you can send me an email, and that's Blum, B-L-U-M, at lythampartners.com, or you can visit the website at lythampartners.com/virtual. Click on the one-on-one meeting request button, and we'll look to get you all taken care of. So with that said, let me turn the presentation over to Lisa Conte, Chief Executive Officer, Jaguar Health. Lisa, please proceed.
Thank you. Thanks, Robert. Thanks, Lytham Partners. You guys were a constant presence during the pandemic. I'm very appreciative of that. So I'm sharing my presentation now, and we will jump right into it, dispense with the forward-looking statements. What Jaguar does, for anybody who hasn't met us before, we do all our drug discovery from plants used traditionally in tropical areas, leveraging the knowledge of traditional healers in rainforest areas. And we did take a product all the way from a tree growing in the rainforest to a first-in-class FDA-approved anti-secretory agent known as crofelemer. This is plant-based. It is sustainably harvested from the rainforest. It's organic, it's fair trade, and it is an FDA-approved drug. And it is the only oral drug approved by the FDA under botanical guidance, which confers a great exclusivity advantage since there's no clear pathway to generating a generic product. So even though you'll hear we have 155 patents issued and they're constantly looking for new IP coverage, we essentially have exclusivity forever. What's really wonderful about crofelemer is the risk mitigation opportunity that it provides to this company for our drug development. It is a pipeline within a product. So it's already approved for HIV-related diarrhea for chronic use, meaning we have chronic safety behind us, 2-year carcinogenicity, for example. And it is in development for multiple follow-on indications, cancer therapy-related diarrhea, an orphaned indication of short bowel syndrome, and you can see multiple other GI disorders. We can't do everything, so we focused on 2 key important pipeline indications initially, and that is cancer therapy-related diarrhea, for which we are in the midst of a phase 3 clinical trial, and the rare disease orphan drug indication of short bowel syndrome and the catastrophic situation that those patients are in and the value to providing relief to those patients. So to give you some idea of what we're talking about here, there are currently no products that have been tested and approved in cancer therapy-related diarrhea, yet it is the most common side effect associated with cancer treatment. If we try to analogize by looking at a supportive care indication of, for example, chemotherapy-induced nausea and vomiting, that market is expected to be approximately a $3 billion market this year. And you typically take those agents for about the first 3 days of chemo cycles, whereas cancer therapy-related diarrhea is often a chronic situation for a year or 2 or 3, particularly in patients who are managing remission with their targeted therapies. So hugely important in terms of the impact to the patient's comfort, their outcome of their cancer therapy potentially, and then of course the return opportunity for all the stakeholders in the company. Short bowel syndrome is a classic rare disease business model. Small population, very expensive patients, high mortality and high morbidity to take care of these patients on a chronic basis. Third-party market research has put this market at about almost a $5 billion market in this decade. Looking at growth hormone and biosimilars, not even taking account of the novel mechanism of action and the new way of treating this disease and symptoms of this disease as you get with crofelemer, which we'll talk about going forward. So the key value drivers for this enterprise are relatively near term. In the next 12 to 15 months, we're going to complete the enrollment in the single pivotal phase 3 trial for cancer therapy-related diarrhea, and we'll know what that p-value is. And this is a supplemental NDA to Mytesi, to the product that is already on the market. So it's expanding, looking to expand the indication of the product that's already on the market for HIV-related diarrhea. And on the short bowel syndrome side, the rare disease orphan indication, we're looking to complete a proof of concept study that will allow for early access program, early access patients in Europe, in a company that we've established in Europe to pursue this indication, where there can be meaningful revenue coming to the company and meaningful access to the product even before it has received full approval, a program available in Europe that's not available in the United States. And we will continue to have business development activities so that we can bring crofelemer and all those pipeline opportunities to as many countries, all patient populations around the world for all the patients that are in need. In the meantime, what's happening this year for the next 12 months as those programs are progressing and in a blinded way, we are very excited that we have launched our second product, or launching our second product right now, which was approved in December of 2021, and that is crofelemer for chemotherapy-induced diarrhea in dogs. And that is a conditional approval that has the name Canalevia. And so there will be multiple activities providing education and awareness about the problem of cancer in dogs of all different types, about the treatment options, and how to allow the dog to be successful on those treatment options with the opportunity to manage the diarrhea with Canalevia. Just to give you some idea of what that market can look like, we don't put out guidance, but we do feel it can be a very important market. About 25% of dogs are going to have a tumor at some point in their life, 50% of the dogs over the age of 10. And when we look at market research, what is the biggest factor in the pet parent, the pet owner making a decision to treat the dog? It is the comfort of the dog, as opposed to a human, right? You can't talk to a dog and say, hey, just suck it up and deal with the treatment, deal with the side effects, and it'll bring you life extension. You can't do that. So comfort of the dog is very important. It's very important for the whole picture here is that dogs are remarkably predictive of the human situation. Dogs, as humans, about 40% of the time will have to go off their chemotherapy or go to a subtherapeutic dose, basically their life-saving dose, because of the side effect of diarrhea. So now managing the diarrhea provides the opportunity for the patient, in this case the dog, to have greater success from the cancer therapy. And an interesting point on the revenue generating side, because in the United States, people are paying for their veterinary care out of pocket, we have great predictability between the gross and the net of revenues that will be generated from Canalevia, as opposed to the volatility and the uncertainty of chargebacks that you have on the human side. Overall, the philosophy of this company is to live within our means of the products that we are commercializing and bring in as much non-dilutive dollars, match our development programs, our pipeline programs as best as we can to non-dilutive dollars. For example, from upfront fees and payments that might come from business development relationships. What's important about Mytesi and crofelemer is what it does and what it doesn't do from a mechanism of action perspective to understand why there are so many different diseases that it can benefit. So what crofelemer does is it normalizes gut function. Typically with watery diarrhea, what you have is some sort of insult to the gut, which could be a drug insult. It could be a virus itself circulating into the gut. It could be an excess of a particular hormone. But whatever that disruption is, it could be a bacteria or a virus or a toxin. Anyway, that causes an active secretion of chloride ions into the gut. That's essentially salt. Water comes in based on osmosis, and the diarrhea goes out. So what Mytesi does and what crofelemer does is it normalizes this ion flow, which therefore normalizes the water flow and specifically mitigates the dehydration associated with watery diarrhea. What it does not do, it's not an opioid. So for example, Imodium and loperamide, loperamide that you think of going to a drugstore, these are opioids, and they work by the mechanism of constipation. So since crofelemer is not an opioid, we don't have that risk of constipation associated with those types of treatments. We're not an antibiotic. Crofelemer is not an antibiotic, so you don't have the risk of resistance, no tolerance that is built up. Remarkably clean safety profile, which is very important in complicated patients like cancer patients, like, for example, Crohn's disease patients, IBD patients, where you don't want to interfere with their other life-saving or disease-modifying medications. Part of the reason why crofelemer is so safe is that it's acting locally in the gut. So you take it orally, it's a pill, it's enteric-coated, goes through the stomach into the intestine, does its thing, and then out it goes. You don't have any drug, since it's not systemically absorbed, you don't have the risk of drug-drug interaction, you don't have secondary metabolites causing problems later on, pretty much don't have any blood levels of the product. So that goes a long way to explaining the safety, which is a very important hallmark of this product. In dozens of published clinical trials, thousands of patients treated, we've never seen a profile different than placebo. So if we talk about the multiple shots on goal and the two that we're focused on right now, cancer therapy-related diarrhea, just to give you some idea of the importance of this indication. As I mentioned, there were publications at ASCO last year that showed that 40% of patients were likely to discontinue their life-saving chemotherapy because of diarrhea. And the importance of that is you're moving now from not just patient comfort, quality of life, dignity, which is very important, but you're also moving along the value chain from, for example, a payer perspective to improving the outcome of the cancer treatment. And of course, a reduction in the cost of care. This was another publication at ASCO last year that it cost nearly 3 times as much to take care of a cancer patient who is experiencing diarrhea, typically because they're going to end up in the hospital with some sort of hydration necessary. This is not your garden variety diarrhea. Stage 3 diarrhea will put you in the hospital for rehydration. There have even been a couple of patients in targeted therapy clinical trials that have ended up dying due to the organ shutdown and the dehydration associated from their diarrhea. There's a lot on this slide, but basically, let me tell you that we are in the midst of a phase 3 clinical trial, double-blind, placebo-controlled, 256 patients. Enrollment is expected to be completed in the first half of 2023. Again, this is a study of crofelemer and specifically Mytesi, the very same formulation that is on the market right now. Most new drug applications fail because of a manufacturing issue or a safety issue. This is a product that already is approved with chronic safety for the current HIV indication, and obviously there's a full supply chain to take it from the rainforest to pharmacies in the United States that's in place for the very same product that we're looking for a supplemental approval for cancer therapy-related diarrhea. I'm going to move on now to the second key pipeline activity expected to have a major transformative value milestone in the next 12 to 15 months, and that's for the rare disease orphaned indication of short bowel syndrome. Short bowel syndrome is a situation where a normal gut length, which would be anywhere from 20 to 25 feet, is as short as 5 feet. It could be as short as 30 centimeters. It can be quite heterogeneous patient population because depending on which part of the gut has been damaged and has been removed, this is a catastrophic situation for the patient. Typically, they will end up on parenteral nutrition 7 days a week, up to 20 hours a day. They're connected to tubes because they don't have enough length of their intestine to go through the normal absorption and secretion of what I would call the nutrients of life, the proteins, the fats, carbohydrates, vitamins, and minerals that are necessary to sustain life. So it is artificially supplemented. What we're looking to do here is by decreasing the secretions, give the patient more time to be able to absorb themselves, absorb naturally the nutrients of life. And if parenteral nutrition can be decreased by even 20%, that can be hugely valuable to the mortality and the morbidity of these patients. Right now, for example, there is a market for a product that is called teduglutide, JAGX in the United States, Restiviv in Europe. This is a product that it's in the growth hormone category. There are several biosimilars that are in development as well. There's a fair amount of toxicity associated with growth hormone. There can be endocrine issues, cardiovascular issues. It's only appropriate to be used in about less than 3% of the patient population. Yet this is the market that is expected to be about a $5 billion market opportunity. Reimbursement can be anywhere from a couple of $100,000 a year to $500,000 a year by decreasing parenteral nutrition needs and decreasing some of the complications of these patients. What crofelemer is looking to do, and in this case, it is not Mytesi. It is not the Mytesi formulation. It's a highly concentrated liquid formulation of crofelemer to minimize any insult or impact or anything else that you're putting into the short bowel of this patient population. So we'd be looking to have an intervention before even teduglutide is administered these patients. So a more expansive target patient population, a much safer situation, a product that can be used chronically, and a product that allows the patient to wean themselves from some of the parenteral nutrition need and the value that would be associated with that. We are pursuing this as a first priority of a company that we established in Europe called Napo Therapeutics. And the reason for that is the opportunity for the early access programs in Europe. With a proof of concept study completed, particularly with a product as safe as crofelemer, publication of that, there is an opportunity for meaningful revenue generation and patient utilization while the product is then completing the clinical trials necessary for full approval. There are established programs that are utilized in Europe now, in Italy, in France, in Germany, and the UK. We don't yet have those programs in the United States for orphan drugs and rare diseases. So that is one of the reasons why this company has been established in Europe and specifically in Italy under an exclusive license from Jaguar Health to Napo Therapeutics. So we have a typical license deal, upfront fees, milestone payments, royalties. Jaguar would be responsible for the manufacturing and the supply to Napo Therapeutics. And in addition, Napo Therapeutics is well over the majority, Jaguar is well over the majority shareholder in Napo Therapeutics. So we have the benefit of the equity ownership as that company creates more and more value. Through the license relationship, Napo Therapeutics will be able to benefit under license from the cancer data that Jaguar is pursuing as a first priority, and Jaguar will be able to benefit from the data that Napo Therapeutics is generating on short bowel syndrome under license, and each company can utilize the data in their territory to pursue final development and commercialization of both indications in their particular territory. I'm going to turn now to financial performance of Mytesi for HIV, the only approved indication right now, and it's in the United States. And as you can see, this was the first product we ever commercialized, and we had a lot to learn about prior authorizations and the obstacles and the hurdles of chargebacks and insurance companies in the United States. And we learned a lot, and by the second quarter of 2020, we instituted a comprehensive patient access program that increased our gross and our net 5 to 6-fold. And that, for example, included hub services to help with prior authorizations, bringing the copay down, and other programs that helped patients and physicians get through the moving from a written prescription to product in the hand of the patient in need. Another aspect of our comprehensive patient access program was moving to a specialty pharmacy situation where we had more services for the physician and the patient, decreased distribution costs, and a much better gross to net ratio. We instituted that in about the third quarter of 2021, And what we did was move from a warehousing situation of Mytesi, where there was 60 to 70 days of inventory that had already been recognized as revenue as required by us under GAAP, to essentially a just-in-time sales process with the specialty pharmacies, which then required that that inventory be bought down. So while our prescriptions increased quarter over quarter in 2021, the recognition of that revenue in our net revenue decreased. That is all completed as of the end of 2021, and in 2022, you will see the continued growth and the improved gross to net and reduction of distribution costs as we recognize our gross and our net revenues going forward. I'm going to move forward now just to talk about the news that we have upcoming. We have a lot of milestones. We have a lot of volume, a lot of trading in our stock. Our milestones are meaty. They're typically associated now with 2 products that are being commercialized, business development deals, and clinical progress for those 2 major clinical programs that we have going forward. Our balance sheet is quite clean. We have cleaned up all the warrants that were in a situation where there was trading around our warrants, so all that has been cleaned up. We have about 77 million shares outstanding. Our team has been together, 10 of us for over 15 years, 3 of us for over 30 years at this point. So with a relatively small team, I call ourselves a little big pharmaceutical company. We do all the aspects of manufacturing, quality, drug development, commercialization, as well as benefit sharing back to our collaborators in the rainforest, with about 55 people on board. A wonderful board that also, many of whom have been together for 10, 15, 20 years. So strong commitment to crofelemer and all the stakeholders over the decades that have been involved with this company. And then just to, in summary, we are a commercial stage company for a specialty market, which is a relatively small market of HIV. But what's really wonderful is that crofelemer is a pipeline within a product. And in the next 12 to 15 months, this is the key activities to bring it to even larger patient populations in great need. For the most part, we match the funding of our development stage programs with non-dilutive financing, business development activities in the past and going forward. We have launched our first animal health product, prescription product, crofelemer for chemotherapy-induced diarrhea in dogs. Another similar specialty market opportunity, but will provide some interesting revenues going forward since this is a pay out-of-pocket market opportunity. You can expect more strategic partnerships as we have a commitment to bring crofelemer to all populations in need in all geographies, a team that is highly committed to do that. And as I mentioned, we have, it's 145 patents that are issued now, filing new patents all the time. However, as a product that is approved by the FDA under botanical guidance, we have a highly desirable proprietary exclusive position, since there's no clear pathway to bring a generic to market. And let me finish at this moment and see if there are any questions.
Fantastic. Yeah, you actually hit on most of the questions I had here. Maybe just to confirm a couple of details here. I guess first off on the formulations, right, for the cancer therapy, diarrhea, that is the same as the current indication for HIV, but it's going to be a different formulation for short bowel syndrome. Is that correct?
Yeah, you're exactly right. So the Mytesi formulation, which is a pill, and it is literally that same pill, that same dose, the same everything that's currently approved that's in the cancer therapy-related diarrhea trial. But the short bowel syndrome, pills, you're at risk of them just going through the patient too quickly. So it's a very, very highly concentrated liquid formulation. And it's also, orphan drugs, rare diseases is a different business model, right? A very small patient population. And because of the expense of taking care of these patients, higher value in the reimbursement opportunity. So it's crofelemer, yet it is a distinct finished product that's going to have different financial aspects associated with the reimbursement.
And then, if I'm not mistaken, the investigator-initiated trial for the chemotherapy-induced diarrhea, what does that tell us as it relates to the phase 3 trial going forward here?
Sure. So what you're referring to is there's multiple investigator-initiated trials going on with crofelemer, but one that completed was reported at the San Antonio Breast Cancer Conference in a poster and is being submitted as a full publication now. And that was done at Georgetown, specifically prophylaxis of diarrhea in breast cancer patients on targeted therapy with or without cycle chemotherapy. And there was a whole slew of secondary endpoints. Those secondary endpoints map very well to the primary endpoint that we have going on in the phase 3 clinical trial right now and showed significance. So we're highly confident about the trial design that we selected. And we negotiated with the FDA for about 18 months before we just started the pivotal trial, specifically to agree on not only the enrollment criteria, but the endpoints and the statistics that would be utilized around it. Because with a novel mechanism of action, this novel anti-secretory normalizing effect of crofelemer, it's a different mentality than, for example, an opioid, where an endpoint is associated with completely stopping bowel activity. What we do is normalize it, meaning, for example, we take the water out of the stool and make nice form stools. Sorry for the visuals, guys. But therefore, you want to have an endpoint that is associated with bringing about normal activity, not stopping activity. And it did require a change of the scientific mentality of the regulators, which we were able to achieve and which does match what we saw in the investigator-initiated results that were released in December last year.
Okay, great. You touched quite a bit on the sort of the net to gross numbers, especially pharmacy, how that sort of, is there anything else that people should be looking at going forward as it relates to that relationship and some initiatives that you're working on?
Yeah, it's a very, again, the first product we ever commercialized, a lot to learn. The key thing to look for the growth and the health of the business is our prescriptions increasing each quarter. And then there's no doubt, and we've already shown it with the fourth quarter results, that as we've shifted to specialty pharma, you're going to see an improvement in that net, not only because of the different mix of the payers, but also because distribution costs have come way down. And as we consolidate revenue by adding in the animal health product, of course, they'll be broken out separately, but when they are consolidated, you'll see even greater improvement because there will be no chargebacks. There's no Medicaid, there's no 340B. When it comes to an animal health product, even people who have insurance, they are being reimbursed themselves. So it's a highly predictable gross to net situation that we'll be able to benefit from throughout 2022 going forward.
Okay, perfect. I know we're probably at the end of time here, but you sort of hit on them at the beginning and maybe at the end there, but just sort of the biggest catalyst over the next 12, 24 months that investors should be paying attention to. I know you mentioned the trials, et cetera, but maybe just reinforce those one more time.
Yep, can't say it enough. Particularly a company that's been around 33 years. This is it. The next 12 to 15 months, two major pipeline catalysts. One is the completion of the phase 3 clinical trial. So looking for that p-value on the primary endpoint because everything else is done, right? The product's already on the market. You don't have to worry about manufacturing. You don't have to worry about safety. And that's for cancer therapy related diarrhea, which is, we feel a blockbuster opportunity based on the comps. And then short bowel syndrome, which is under license from us to Napo Therapeutics, where we have not only the license benefit, but also the opportunity to utilize the data in the US and the equity benefit in Napo Thera. A proof of concept study, which is expected to start and complete this year with publication, then allows meaningful revenues to come in Europe from the early access program for patients in Europe. So those two events are transformative for the company.
Fantastic. All right. Well, look, we will leave it there. Lisa, thank you so much for your time. As always, we greatly appreciate it. Again, anyone that's watching here and has not already signed up for a one-on-one meeting, if you'd like to arrange one, please reach out to me. Again, my email is blum@lythampartners.com, or you can visit the website, lythampartners.com/virtual. Click on the one-on-one meeting request button. We'll get you all taken care of. We hope you enjoy the conference. Again, Lisa, thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. I love these conferences. Bye, guys.